Hi, welcome to the Andy Ramirez Report Video Log 14. In this report I'm doing a bit of a DC roundup considering all of the scandals that have just exploded in Washington DC over the past week or so. And it is rather extraordinary to see this much happening in one shot. But that's, as they say, it is what it is. Given this administration, given their transparency, which in my opinion has always meant the same thing, to commit crimes in the open, well, that's exactly what it is. Now, first and foremost, we have the IRS issue, and that's something that is very near, dear, and personal to me. As chairman and founder of Friends of the Border Patrol, we experienced what they're talking about firsthand. What they're saying about the Obama administration, just to get FOBP off the ground, if you will, we had to jump through hoops that were just as extraordinary as this current group of individuals are dealing with. Only our time has also extended into the Obama administration and some of the shenanigans. For instance, they talk about how it's taken, you had to turn in hundreds and hundreds of pages and answer question after question pertaining to the scrutiny that the Internal Revenue Service has put them through. The same thing that we did. Any page that was on the website had to be copied and submitted. So literally any statement whatsoever that was made had to be provided to the Internal Revenue Service. This reviewer, if you will, or case officer, or application specialist, was so by the book that for years I joked that he was so by the book the ink used to make that book must have come from his blood, because he was ridiculous. He went above and beyond. Now, it's not just that, but that process took far longer than it should have. I spoke with a number of individuals over the time back then who were specialists and said we went through hoops that nobody has to go through. And why? Well, it was pretty clear. They did not want the name Friends of the Border Patrol. There were certain aspects that I could certainly understand, and that's to stay within code and to make sure we knew what we were doing. You know, I fully understand that part. You don't want to have a group running amok, but at the same point, we met and complied with everything. It was ridiculous. Now, in current time, and of course, keep in mind that was the George W. Bush administration era when this took place. Our application was filed in 2005 and approved in 2005-2006. It took a very long time. In fact, it was 2006 because contributions were retroactive. So, that said, now we moved to the Obama administration. They've put organizations through the same thing. It seems that liberal and progressive based groups are getting quickly passed through the process. And yet, like FOBP, conservative groups or Tea Party groups or Patriot type groups were definitely not being approved with the same speed as the other side. On top of that, we have our own experience with the IRS. In 2011, FOBP received a letter as we were winding down. We hadn't done any money or taken any contributions. It had ceased all fundraising quite some time before. And yet, the IRS decided they wanted to do an audit, but they wanted to do an audit from several years prior. As it fell within guidelines, it was within their right, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, to request an audit? Let me tell you something. That was a political hit. And why? Because of the statements and of fact, as well as documentation being provided to the public, through the media, through our website and other mediums, as well as to the United States Congress. Pretty clear what was going on there. That's not a shocker. There's discussion that this has been Nixonian. This goes well past Nixonian, because it's clear what's taken place. Now, for those who think that this was done by some rogue officers or case reviewers in the IRS, think again. Because government and politics don't work that way. And Mr. Carney, Mr. White House spokesman, if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. I've got several of them right near the White House to sell you. Because that dog don't hunt, and everybody in D.C. and around the country knows that that's not how government works. But there's the other scandals that need to be covered, because I'm going to tie this together for everyone. You also have the DOJ that's been used to wiretap the media. You look at the OIG report out today from the Justice Department. Turns out it wasn't just the AP, but now it's Fox News Channel too. Some of the folks over at Fox I've known going back to 2004, 2005, during the beginning of my countless appearances on their network, specifically talking about border security, immigration enforcement, Justice Department, questionable and overreaching prosecutions. Trust me, this is probably something that goes back even prior to the Obama administration. But considering what's been taking place, it's been documented under Obama because they're so incompetent, it had to come out. So you have DOJ being used to wiretap the media. You have the IRS being used to harass tax-exempt organizations and intimidate. And let's face it, what's more intimidating than the Justice Department or the Internal Revenue Service, many of whom liken to a modern-day Gestapo, if you will. But on top of that, you also have DOJ being used to arm the Mexican drug cartel, as well as DOJ and their counterparts at DHS assisting with the cover-up. And you can't tell me that Janet Napolitano was not part of a cover-up in the Fast and Furious case, because who better to cover up what was taking place in Arizona? Now keep in mind, the part of this wiretapping process by the DOJ and this discrediting process also happened during Fast and Furious, because it's pretty clear what was taking place there. You had Dennis Burke, the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, who was basically pounding Mr. Dotson, the whistleblower in the Fast and Furious case. And Agent Dotson did the courage he demonstrated to get this information out. We need more folks to come out and step forward, because let's face it, there is no way you can tell me that Janet Napolitano was not personally involved in the operation, considering this happened in Arizona. As former governor and attorney general and U.S. attorney for the state of Arizona, there is no way that she did not have ears and boots in the ground feeding back information as to what was taking place. You don't become governor of a state, attorney general of a state, or a U.S. attorney without having ears in the ground who are still calling and reporting to you and letting you know what's happened. Because the one thing you don't want to do is ever be out of contact. They talk about how Barack Obama is so attention to detail and specific to details and hands-on when it comes to details. So now you're saying that Obama doesn't know? He doesn't know about IRS scandal. He doesn't know about DOJ scandal. He doesn't know about DHS. He doesn't know about Fast and Furious wiretapping or Benghazi. I say bullshit to that. There is no way he doesn't know, because that's how government works. Then you also have this whole mess with Fast and Furious. If you look at the cover stories, Benghazi, Fast and Furious, IRS, and every last scandal that's coming out, we hear the same response from the White House. Oh, well, we didn't know. It was this person. It was this low-level person. You know what? They were right in that hearing last week when they said, why don't they needed to go to the Truman Presidential Library and go back to the buck stops here. Truman took responsibility for things, and look what took place. The Obama administration knows nothing, yet their administration seems to be doing everything. There's a statement in politics about it either coming down to pure incompetence or and stupidity or rogue outfit. No, it doesn't work that way in government. not to have this many departments involved. State, DHS, DOJ, Treasury, because that's who IRS is housed under. You have 4 departments involved with individual scandals of massive, the impeachable kind, the kind that cover high crimes and misdemeanors. You have this mass misconduct and the White House doesn't know? That dog don't hunt. I say bullshit to that. Now, let's get to the point of this, because this is what it all comes down to. It's tying this together. As you know, in government, if I was teaching a government class, one of the things I would tell my students that after I've been involved in politics since September of 1992. And I had a lot of direct involvement in some very high-level stakes, very high-level games in the political arena. And I don't need to get into all that now. You can go to my website, AndyRamirez.com. You can look me up and you can see some of the things I've been involved in, because I'm very open about this. One thing you learn, whether it's the state legislature or just the political party politics or the White House or the Congress, whatever the level is, the politics are the same. Tip O'Neill, former Democrat Speaker of the House, used to say, all politics is local. There is a pecking order. And those who are junior ranking in the pecking order all look to the top man at the totem pole. And right now, the top man at the totem pole is Barack Hussein Obama. And that's where that buck stops to. If you're a Democrat operative or a Democrat politician, elected or appointed, your buck stops with him. Your buck stops with your governors. So keep that in mind. It's like the military in that regard, and I use that as an example to define it. If a person was a general or an admiral, and a person was a captain or a colonel, captain, Navy, colonel, otherwise, who's higher in the pecking order? The more amount of stars, the higher the pecking order. So you take, if you're of the same rank, then it's by the classes. Well, that's not that much different when you look at the rest of government. It's the same pecking order. The higher rank is the higher pecking order. So the bottom line is, who is the highest rank? Well, you're telling me that Hillary Clinton had this knowledge, Eric Holder had this knowledge, Janet Napolitano had this knowledge, Treasury Secretary Lou had this knowledge, but they really didn't. It was their underlings. If the Attorney General knew, the Attorney General knew. If the Undersecretary at State knew, so does the Secretary. That's just how it works. Nobody ties their shoelaces or takes a pee or takes a dump without their higher official knowing about this, because they want the get-out-of-jail-free card. Not everybody falls on their sword like my friend Louis Caldera. You may remember him from Travelgate. He fell on the sword for Obama because he's an honorable man and a good military officer. The rest of these ass clowns in Washington are not. They're scum, they're vermin, they're pieces of crap. So they don't fall on their swords, they just blame some poor schmuck at the lower end of the totem pole. They knew, and if they all knew, because you have now too many departments, you're telling me that Barack Hussein Obama didn't know? Bullshit. That dog does not hunt. That skunk doesn't pass the smell test. If it walks and looks like a skunk, it's a skunk. And that's exactly what we have here. We have a high amount of questions that need to be asked. We need a special prosecutor to go in there and start cleaning house. But it's not just that. Because you have to take a look inside of the agencies because of the infestation that has taken place over decades of misconduct by White House and administrations. DR hasn't been much of a difference there. There has been so much inner insulation among underlings who have been appointed and put their people in that, look at immigration. Why is it a disaster? Because for years, 2 presidents now, it's been out of control through DHS. Look at the Border Patrol. Look at Customs. Look at ICE. Look at all these agencies. They're a disaster. And why? Because of what's been allowed to take place. Congress, you want to start looking somewhere for reforms? look at the departments and the agencies themselves. Clean house there. Then you can worry about the next legislative steps of what needs to be reformed. We need to smoke them out and clean them out. Then we can restructure and rebuild. Because that's the first step of a process. We have identified the messes now. Now let's go in there and smoke out the rest of the vermin and clean it out entirely, and then we can put America back on its proper path with all this scum gone. That's it for now. If you have any questions, you can always go through my website, AndyRamirez.com, and I'll try to get answers to you, or else through Facebook or through Twitter. Very easy to access through my website. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with more information.